In business and in politics, there's something known as protocol. If you're invited to the White House, especially for an official news conference in the Oval Office, there are some things that you should and shouldn't do just out of respect for the office and the people you might meet while you're there. The way you represent yourself, something it says something about you and the org that you represent. So when I watched that Oval Office news conference featuring Elon Musk and his son X, there was a lot of nonverbal communication that spoke louder than words. Now, before we get into it, I'm going to give you a disclaimer because I am not a psychologist. I know a few psychologists, but I am not one, and I especially I've had 57 rotations around the sun, so yeah, I've got some years on me, and in that time, it has taught me a few things about protocol and business. So let's get into it. Now, first, Elon's attire. I'm going to try to keep an eye on the video. I'm not going to show it endlessly because, they throw things in there. But right now, let's talk about Elon's attire. He had on what looked like a pea coat and a type of green shirt underneath, and it looked like some blue jeans, some black jeans. That is what it looked like that he wore to the Oval Office. Now, this attire looks like something you'd be ready to wear if you're going hunting, in my opinion. Elon didn't bother to remove his hat. Now, customarily, traditionally, people wear a hat outside to cover their head, and then when they come inside the building, they remove their hat. He didn't bother to do that. So that shows his lack of respect for Donald Trump and the office of the presidency and his lack of respect for protocol. We already went over his attire. Looks like he's going hunting. His son X had on a shirt with a collar and a tie and a sweater vest with an overcoat. So clearly, the person who dressed X knows something about dressing appropriately. Whoever dressed X should have checked Elon before he went out the door. So some of you might say, well, Elon is the boss of his own company, and that's why he's not too concerned with how he is dressed and protocol as far as his dress code. But he's not the boss at the White House, or is he? Therein lies the question. Secondly, his position during the news conference conveyed that he, Elon, was the alpha male in the room. So, not Trump, but Elon. Now, Musk stood the entire time while Trump sat the entire time. Now, they could have held the news briefing at a location where both men could stand at the podium, but they didn't. Musk chose to stand to show his power over Trump, in my opinion. And I am watching the comment section, the chat room. So if you want to give me your feedback on that, but yeah, in my opinion, he intentionally stood so that he can show his superiority, that he's the alpha male in that situation. Why didn't Trump stand up too, you might ask? Well, to show that they were at least equals, that would have been the thing to do. I know that when I am in a position where I'm seated and then somebody starts to talk to me about something and it goes for an extended period of time, let's say more than a minute or so, you're standing over me talking, I just automatically stand up because psychologically, that seems to me you're talking down to me, you're in some way over me. And so, okay, here we go with the video. So I'm going to stop that video and then we'll get out of that video. So because we already know what I mean, if you want to see the entire video, you can go to YouTube and look at that. But yeah, when people are standing over me, I automatically stand up because I psychologically, that's just something that I do. And so that struck me that Donald Trump would continue to sit while someone stood over him and talked at a news briefing in his office. Just makes no sense to me. So, thirdly, Musk led the way answering the questions from journalists while Trump initially sat there trying to ignore Elon's son, as the boy picked his nose and then white boogers on his desk or either ate the boogers. I just really quit trying to determine what he was doing with those boogers because he was picking a long time, okay? But that's what tykes do. They pick their noses and sometimes they eat it. So anyway, yeah, that was a little distracting to say the least, which leads me to this. Should Musk, is it me, or do you think Musk should have left X with his mother or a babysitter that day? So why bring a child that age to a business event? Why bring a child that age to a business event? Because clearly he's too young to appreciate the experience, and he served more of a distraction than anything because kids that age, they want attention. They are doing their own thing. They're not really paying attention, just as X was doing, and it served as a distraction. Now, some people said that X was a security blanket for his father, and just in case there was a question that came up or something that came up and Elon couldn't answer it, he would pick the boy up, put him around his neck, hug on him a little bit, try to get the focus off of I don't know what the hell I'm talking about to look at my son. Okay, so maybe that was what was going on. Either way, I had to laugh at the whole news conference thing because it shed light on a few things for me. It shed light that basically Donald Trump was giving Rodney Dangerfield vibes. Okay, he clearly gets no respect from Musk. Trump he's met his match in Elon Musk. And because I often wondered, what was the attraction? Because initially, remember, Elon Musk would talk about how he didn't agree with Donald Trump's decisions to do whatever he was doing, whatever the focus was at that time. So for him to then turn around and them to be like best friends and chumming and we're going to fix America together and all of that seems kind of strange to me. But Trump has met his match, and I say that because Elon has more children than Trump. He's got about 12 kids to Trump's 5 with different baby mamas, both of them. Elon Musk has quadruple the amount of money than Trump claims that he has, and he definitely has had more business success than Trump has. Trump has more failures, of course, if you want to look at it that way. But this time, neither of them are an establishment person. Both of them are anti-establishment people. But in this instance, Musk showed disrespect for Trump, and you could tell that Donald Trump that is just like getting on his last nerve, but he really can't say anything because of probably the predicament that he has put himself in by allowing Musk to fund his campaign and leading him to get elected. And now you just can't say, look, dude, get away from me. I don't need you anymore, because then, and there's no telling how Musk would handle that. So yeah, you got to love that scene, if for no other reason than because it's getting Trump a taste of his own medicine as far as how he treats other people and the establishment and protocol in that instance. Now, speaking of disrespecting people and being transactional. I got a chance to look at that movie, The Apprentice, about Donald Trump and his transactional relationships with his family, and Roy Cohn, who was a White House chief legal counsel at one time. I think he was President Nixon's White House chief legal counsel in the 60s, and he's now deceased. But the movie just talked about and showed you how Donald Trump came to be who he is, and how he what's the best way to say it, how he never admits failure, how he always seems to, in his eyes, he's a winner, and he used superfluous uh, words to over exaggerate everything that he does or everything that he wants to do. So that is, if you are interested in something like that, or just a better understanding who Donald Trump is or how he came to be, that movie, The Apprentice, is a good way for you to have better understanding of that. And while I rarely try to make logic out of people's illogical behavior, I came across a video on YouTube that I want to share with you, and I'm not going to share it in its entirety. I'm just going to do little snippets of it. And it is of a historian, an economic historian, and how he sheds light on some of the things that Donald Trump seems to be fixated on. So, meaning about tariffs and the Panama Canal. And this video that I'm going to share with you in a minute, it is actually the podcast for a guy named Robinson Earnhardt is the name of the person. Robinson Earnhardt, he interviewed Richard Wolff. So if you want to go look at the entirety of Robinson Earnhardt's podcast when he interviewed Richard Wolff, that would be a good idea. I rarely refer you to other people, but some things are just so eye-opening, and so informational that I think it's okay to share. One of the things that they talked about, and if you haven't already, be sure to like, share, and subscribe so that when I post new videos, you'll be the first to know. Now, one of the things that Richard Wolff talked about was, why is it that Donald Trump seems so adamant about imposing tariffs on every country? Now, and I'll tell you a little bit about that. Essentially, that's really all that he has had the power to do in his first term. It seemed like he wanted to do a lot of the things that are a part of Project 2025, but because of the makeup of Congress, most of what he wanted to do was either overturned or was not passed, and so he was unable to do a lot. But he realized through that one of the things that he as president was able to enact and impose was a tariff on another country. And so he picked up on that. And now in his second term, he sees, oh, I can do this. This is something I can win at without anybody telling me no. And so he's going for it with the tariffs. That is just one of the things. But I'm going to just show you a little bit about what Richard Wolff had to say about Donald Trump, and I found it to be true by looking at the movie The Apprentice. So let's look at this, and let me go ahead and start it.
I could go out on Fifth Avenue and shoot someone, and people would still applaud what I'm doing. He stumbled onto a connection. His own life and that of large numbers of people. They vibrated together. He was dismissed by the upper echelons of American corporate society. He was, a gifted child. That is, the father left a lot of money to the kid, his father, who had real estate in Brooklyn and left a chunk of money to his son. So the claim that he worked hard to make his money is silly, and that was used against him a lot. He suffered from that. He's none too bright, and so he didn't do very well in school, or he is bright and he, spent time grabbing parts of anatomy and drinking too much. And so there wasn't much there.
So that kind of explains why Donald Trump is like he is. And according to that movie that I was referring to, The Apprentice, he was kind of like an outsider, and he, just like a child, would act out to try to get attention. So he became this person who always wanted to do something to get attention. And so he came to the attention of Roy Cohn, the who was the White House legal counsel, and started to use Roy Cohn's influence to get in and through in circles. But once he got to where he wanted to be, and then Roy Cohn, although they didn't say it in the movie, it was apparent to me that Roy Cohn developed AIDS and died of AIDS. That once that stigma at that time, of course, nobody wanted to be around you. They didn't want you to touch them and all of that, because we were unsure as to how it was contracted. So once Roy Cohn started to exhibit those that he had that disease, then Donald Trump separated himself from him, felt like he didn't need him anymore, and went on without him, didn't claim to know him, all of those things. It also talks about how Donald Trump and his, before he married Ivana, his first wife, his first three kids' mother, that was a transactional thing. I think he ended up paying her money to marry him. Just all those things, because he had to buy his way in. And he even though he had the money from his father, he didn't really want to do it. And so that goes back to, now he finds camaraderie with Elon Musk, because I'm told, and from what I understand, Elon had the same issue. He wasn't like a liked person as a child, as a boy, as a young man. And because he has money, he now was able to buy favor. So they are kind of like two peas in a pod. And so that's how they ended up in each other's circle. But now it's coming around like Elon is outmaneuvering Trump at his own game. So there was another part where they talked about Richard Wolff, and during the interview, he was asked about Trump's fixation with the Panama Canal and what that was all about. So I'm going to try to fast forward it to that part, because I've already gotten everything all set up. So let's see if I can get to that part.
The issue that I can see is part of an anti-China agenda. The number one country that uses the Panama Canal is the United States. The number two country is China. Because they're number one and two in a whole lot of areas. There's 1, 2. China has built, not surprisingly, a bunch of port facilities on either end of the canal. Buildings, and bought land and have establishments there. Chinese companies, and who may or may not be part of the Chinese government. So American companies.
Now I'm going to stop it right there because I this struck me. Now that so it's looking like it really the Panama Canal itself and Panama, the country, have really little to do with why Trump wants to take over the Panama Canal. He's really trying to get back at China because, and then listen more, only a few more minutes, but it's kind of like they just happen to be in the way of why Trump is trying to bully his way back into saying the American Canal, Panama Canal, and all that. So let's take a look at this, and then I'll give you my analysis.
Began some years ago to be a little bit worried about what is going on in these Chinese companies, which comes out of a fantasy, that's what I think it is, that the Chinese are aggressively moving into position to cause difficulties for the United States.
Okay, so that's really the last point that I want to share with you is this. This reminds me, and then I'll go ahead and click off of that. Again, that was Richard Wolff, and he was being interviewed by Robinson Earnhardt, I think his name was. And both of them, you can find them on YouTube. They each have their own YouTube channel. So Richard Wolff has a lot of knowledge, historical knowledge about the economies of different countries that I think would be advantageous for anybody who's trying to make sense of everything to listen to. But going back to what he was saying about how the Panama Canal on either side, China has built infrastructure, and they're the second country, the country that uses the Panama Canal most, other than the United States. And so it's really not about the Panama Canal. It's not really about Panama. The United States is worried about. They want to block China in every way that they can, just simply because they feel like they are advancing, that the United States and China and other countries can't coexist for some reason. They think, oh, we have to be number one when the economy, whether we're talking about sports, whether we're talking about the economy, whether we're talking about the evolution of life, it's all cyclical. It's all evolution. You can't be at the top all the time. You can't be the number one team, basketball, football, baseball. You can't be number one all the time. At some point, you got to be in a rebuilding stage, and somebody else who was at the bottom is going to come to the top. And right now, it happens to be China that's on point. And so the United States is doing what they can. Donald Trump specifically is doing what he can to try to block that. When he said that, that reminded me of how, if you are a person of color, okay, if you're a Black person specifically, because I'm a Black woman, when you are at a job or you are or somewhere in public and it's a lot of Black people around and y'all are like talking or laughing, or you like whispering and saying something to each other, have you noticed how some white people get nervous, or some white people want to know, well, what are y'all talking about? Or one individual will come over and say, hey, what's going on over here? And it's like, why can't we just be having a conversation? Why do you need to know what we're talking about? It's because, and then like Richard Wolff just said, the United States has this thing where when they see progress of somebody else, or when they see something going on that they don't quite understand about somebody else, they get agitated. They get like, well, what's going on with them? Well, why? What are they planning? Why do we have to be planning something? Why can't we just be living our lives, minding our business? Okay, so that is what reminded me of that when Richard Wolff said that, because that just goes to show Nothing has changed but the date on the calendar. People still think the same way. They still are trying to keep up and oppress and still trying to make sure they stay at the top and certain people stay at the bottom, because and they're so busy doing that, everybody could be coexisting were it not for certain people trying to be oppressive to others. So I'll end it there. But going back to my original topic of that Oval Office interview, that just shows that at some point in your life, you're going to be not at the top. You've got to be teaching and training somebody else. You got to be loving on and preparing the next generation to take over the fight, because you're not going to be able to be at the top all the time. And we have to just realize our invincibilities. Is that the word? We have to realize our what's that word? I can't remember the name of the word right now, but eventually you're going to pass on, and you have to make sure that who you leave behind is prepared for whatever, to take over the family business, to take over, to be the political leader, to be the community leader, to lead your family, whatever it is. We have to do that. And so Donald Trump is one of those people who is not that type of person. He's not willing to relinquish anything, and he's all the ways felt like he didn't get what was coming to him, and so he's gonna make sure he tears down everything else that everybody else is building up. So yeah, that's what I got from that. So it is important for us to realize that we have to prepare the next generation, whether it's in your family or somebody else's, in our community, just to be ready to be the leader that we want to see. I always say when I'm at work and I write cards, thank you cards to people, I say on the card oftentimes, be the change that you want to see, and quit waiting on somebody else to be that change. So that's really all I wanted to share with you. To find out more about the things that I care about, you can go to the written version. I'm trying to put my captions up here so you can see where you can follow me. To find out more about the things that I care about, you can go to the written version of my journal. And also, if you, I am a top contender in the Entrepreneur of Impact national competition. And yeah, I want your vote. So this is how you vote for me: entrepreneurofimpact.org/2025 /Steffanie Rivers. The winner of the competition gets a Forbes feature. They get a mentorship with Damon, the People's Shark John, and $25,000. And so help me to be that winner. I'm in the top 10 right now, and we're choosing, voting is going on now to choose the top 5, and then from there they got some other, little wild card stuff they're talking about, but I don't have to worry about being a wild card because I'm gonna be on that in that number 1 spot. And so yeah, so that's it. Ain't got no more. Thank you so much, and have a super day.